Guys and girls, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the SoCal Watch Reviews podcast, episode 89. Thank you so much for sticking with us for this long, almost 2 years. So we're super excited once again to be recording this podcast. We got somebody special, but first, my co-host, P. Ross, how's it going?
Yo, it's going great. How's everyone doing out there right now? We are in the building.
I think everybody's doing fantastic. So, P. Ross, we got a return guest, a very special guest.
Yes.
So, as always, do the introduction. Our guests always love it. So, do your thing, man.
Right now, we have a serious player in the watch game. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we have the co-founder and CEO of Christopher Ward London in the building.
Mr. Mike France.
Yeah.
How do I compete with a build-up like that, guys? I mean, that's. Hey, I feel like I'm just walking out into Wembley Arena. You know?
Oh yeah.
You're a special guy, Mike. And I was telling you offline that the reception from having you last time was amazing. And this morning I posted the C1 Moonglow, a picture I had from when I had a chance to review it. And I got to tell you, every time I post a picture of that watch, it gets crazy amounts of likes and love and comments, and my video got a great reception, and P. Ross too. I mean, it's crazy what you guys are doing, and people were like, hey, say hi to Mike for me. There's actually a pastor that has a YouTube channel that's into watches. His name is Tim from Reflections on Faith, and he's like, hey, say hi to Mike for me. I'm like, okay. Will do.
Hi to Tim. Yeah.
Hi, Tim. So, how you been?
I've been good, thanks. Yeah, I mean we're gradually moving out of the pandemic here in the UK, and it's not quite normal, but getting very close to normal.
Okay.
I'm going to gigs again. I'm going to a concert at the Royal Albert Hall tonight with Simon Rattle, listening to the London Symphony Orchestra, do a bit of Stravinsky, and so with a full audience. I'm going to watch my favourite team, Everton, play Brighton next week. Full crowd. So things are pretty normal. Let's hope and pray that they remain like that. Really.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, things for us here in the US are weird. So things are definitely kind of back to normal and normalizing. But with this whole Delta thing going on, it's just crazy, and mass mandates, and I don't know about the rest of the world, but one of the unfortunate things, at least here in the US, that this whole COVID created in the mask is political divide between people, and that's what it's turned into. And it's sad, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about your health, not about politics. But
yeah, absolutely,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, the moment government start playing politics with our health, it's a worrying time, isn't it? Really. So.
Absolutely.
I know here in Ohio, Friday we had 3,000 new cases.
Oh man!
So it's going up again in Ohio. So
yeah, here in California, the kids just started school 2 weeks ago, and last week there was a huge report. Not here in Southern California, a high school had 300 students quarantined because of a case, and it's kind of scary because my son just started school, elementary school, and it's like, man, why can't things just go back to how they were? You know, this is
yeah.
It was hard enough as it was.
It's the kids that have suffered the most, I think, in all of this. They've missed schooling, they've missed social contact, and we know that social contact at a young age really is one of the most important things that we can give our children. So for them, let's hope that it returns to normal very soon.
Yeah, let's hope so. But let's get into this wrist check. I am very curious to know what you guys are wearing today. So, Mike, you're a guest. What are you wearing?
Yeah, I'm wearing a very unusual one-off watch, which is
nice.
A watch that we did some time ago called the C9 Jumping Hour. It's our own caliber JJ01 Jumping Hour, which is one of the most accurate jumping hours ever created. And we did it initially in stainless steel.
Okay.
And then we were going to bring out a gold limited edition version, but we only ever produced the prototype, and I have this prototype on my wrist. We never actually brought it to market.
Wow.
And the jumping hour caliber is rested at the moment. It probably will make a return in one form or another in the next 12 to 18 months. So occasionally I like to wear this particular watch, which
It's beautiful.
is a favorite of mine. But as there's only one of it in the world,
Nice.
if anybody's listening, there are a few people who've made me offers of quite a lot of money to own this watch, and I'm not giving it up. So,
Wow.
so there'll be a few people who are a little envious that I'm wearing it today. There you go.
That's
Okay.
nice. Is
Well,
that
that's an exclusive flex on the SoCal
Yeah,
Watch Reviews podcast. That's what's up.
Yeah.
wow.
One the first time it's ever made an appearance anywhere on a podcast.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
What
awesome.
a flex.
14 karat?
Yeah, no, this is actually 14 karat. Yeah, this is the prototype. So
That's incredible.
as I say, we only made the one, but we went and we've rested this particular design. But the jumping hour is we're working on a collaboration at the moment, which I won't go into because it's confidential. But we're working on a collaboration where I'm hoping we'll bring the jumping hour back into reality sometime in 2022. So it's a great caliber, and the creator of the caliber, Johannes Janker, who was our master watchmaker at the time, he was the closest thing to a genius that I'll ever work with, probably. I may have mentioned him when we first spoke, I don't know, but he built a module on top of a 2824, and which we own the copyright to, the IP rights for, and I don't know if you know, there aren't that many jumping hour calibers around.
Right.
There are a few. Historically, it was quite an important caliber and movement, but virtually none of them actually change absolutely on the hour every hour. They're always a little time delay, either they're a few seconds early or a few seconds late. And we wanted to make the first jumping hour that absolutely clicked over precisely on the hour, and that's what this does. And so I'm not elaborating, I'm not gilding the lily by saying we think it's the most accurate jumping hour that's ever been created, which is something we're quite proud of as a small independent brand to have done, really.
I gotta clap that up.
Yeah, that's
remember, y'all saw it here first.
That's incredible.
I heard it here first.
That's incredible, Mike. I mean, obviously we know jumping hours are always reserved for like the higher tier of horology, right? So to know that you guys have the power to do that, that's incredible. And I could attest to this, that so last time we talked, I'm like, I never seen your watches in the metal and this and that all changed, right? So we had you on the podcast, and then Rosie, she's awesome, by the way. So Rosie
I'll tell her.
Rosie sent me the C1 Moonglow to review, and I was super impressed, right? So when I got it, from the packaging to the actual, just everything about it, I put it under macro, and I'm like, all right, so I get it now. I get that Christopher Ward is just different level, right? And then P. Ross, you had a similar experience, right?
Yes. Freaking awesome.
I'm really pleased. Really pleased. It's one of my favorite watches. I don't just say that, but it's a very, very special watch, the Moonglow.
Yeah, once you see that lume though, it's incredible. Like pictures and video don't do it justice. Like in person, it looks crazy. Like you're like, man, this looks so cool. Like and just how that particular model, how versatile it is, right? It looks elegant, but a little sporty and playful.
It is it's kind of an interesting mix, isn't it? It's not a classic dress watch, which you expect a moon phase watch to be. Possibly because, I think largely because of the focus on the lume, really. It transcends into it being a sports watch. And I think that's what's caught people's imagination with it. And I'm especially pleasing. I mean, we launched it for one of your country's greatest achievements in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the landing on the moon back in 19. That gave it a sort of a resonance, I think. And it launched, if you'll forgive the pun, it launched extremely well. And has continued to sort of capture people's imaginations ever since. It also was the first watch that we worked on that had this Sapphire Dial treatment. And believe me, it took a long time to perfect it in the moon glow. But having perfected it, it's given us a whole new world of sapphire dials, and given us several watches since, including one I think we're going to talk about later. But
cool.
And so we've become expert at, or I'd like to think at least we've become expert at sapphire dials, certainly producing sapphire dials at accessible prices, because they're not easy to deliver at any price. They're very difficult. It's a very difficult substrate to work with, especially when you're talking about the level of sort of parameters that we're working to in engineering. And the moon glow went through many iterations before we managed to stop cracking the dials.
Oh man, I bet.
The development costs were far higher than I'd anticipated.
Yeah, it looks very intricate. I mean, the details on the moons and everything is just, you could tell you guys spent some money on that. So
it's cool. It's a cool watch. It's a cool watch.
Definitely. P. Ross, what are you rocking today, man?
I am rocking the vintage Tutor Aqua.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Very nice. Ross, yeah.
Rocking the Tutor Black Bay 58. So I can't seem to take this thing off. Crazy value. Let me ask you something, and I really want to get your opinion, because you are an open guy about everything we talked about last time, Rolex and whatnot. What's your opinion on Tutor?
I think Tutor are truly excellent watches. I'm also pleased to say that our cases come from the same place that Tutor's cases come from.
Really?
So
wow.
Yeah, I don't suppose they've ever said they're proud that their cases come from the same place that Christopher Ward's come from. But we know that the quality of them is outstanding, just as we know the quality of our cases is similarly outstanding. And I think they have, in the past, 5 or 6 years, they've reinvented the brand. And instead of being a poor man's Rolex, which is how they were largely seen, I think they've reinvented themselves to become a really substantial, appropriate brand in their own right. And in some ways, I think, have moved ahead of Rolex. They're more adventurous. They're prepared to take more risk with design. Personal view, I prefer the look of many Tudor sports watches to anything else out on the market. So I'm a big fan.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, I see. So we last spoke about the C63 Sealander collection. You had a lot of different models, and from what I could see, I actually had a few friends pick a few models up. Great success. But and I'm just curious, what was the most popular model ever out of the whole collection?
Most popular is the GMT.
Okay.
In terms of cash sales, the most popular in terms of unit sales, because it's several £100 or several $100 cheaper, is the automatic. So all three have, including the Elite, which is the titanium version, have exceeded any expectation. We've sadly we don't play the sort of the game that some of the brands play, which is creating demand by being falsely out of stock. When we're out of stock, we genuinely are out of stock, because we like to fill every order. And anybody who knows and visits our site regularly will know that we sold out of a number of the GMT options very quickly, and they don't come back into stock until early October, end of September, early October. So it was an astonishing launch, and I think I probably said to you, we were looking, it was a key new platform for us. Rather than just launching a new design of a watch, this was a key platform that was a gap in our ranging structure.
Right.
And it looks like that's what's happened, that we now have a new platform, and there are some additions to that platform coming shortly, mainly color options in the autumn. So it's which we weren't going to do unless the whole thing had proved to be successful. So you'll see some new color options in both the automatic and the GMT arriving in October of this year. So
Wow.
Fingers
Okay.
crossed it continues at the rate it started, because it's been really, really, really good for us.
Yeah, well, like I said, the word on the street is that Christopher Ward is great quality for great money, and I think it's, as long as you guys keep doing what you're doing, your reputation is just going to continue to grow. And obviously, in our inner circle, everybody talks about Christopher Ward very highly. And when we talk about micro brands, Christopher Ward really doesn't get brought up in that conversation because we view you obviously as an independent, which is a great kind of place to be, right? Because I mean, we're talking, you're above a lot of, I'm not going to name any names, but in our opinion, you're above a lot of the rest of the of the other guys out there, and that's a good thing. And I personally aspire to own a Christopher Ward. I just don't know what specific model, because there's so many to choose from. But at one point, one will make itself into my personal collection, because I love the design. I love what you guys are doing, and I like you as a person too, Mike, obviously, and I could stand behind you, because that makes a huge difference. I mean, think about it, right?
Yeah.
There's some brands out there, and again, I won't name any names, that I like their design and I like what they're bringing, but because of management, because of who owns the company, unfortunately, it turns you off as a collector. And you're like, I don't know if I could stand behind that. I don't really like that person's attitude. So by me having this watch, it's almost, well, it is supporting that person, and I just don't feel like that's what I want to do. You know, with your company, it's completely different. So.
It's very, very, very humbling to hear that, and a little embarrassing. So, but thank
Come
you.
on,
Really,
come on, Mike.
Really appreciate it. No, it's very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, is the truth.
Truth is. So we know that CW has partnered in the past with Britain's Ministry of Defense and with the Blue Marine Foundation. Can you talk about last year's partnership, how that came to be, and what the success was?
With the Blue Marine Foundation, one of life's nice accidents, really, in some ways. I was at a music festival in 2017, 2018, and I bumped into one of my daughter's best school friends, who was with her new husband, and Dan Crockett, his name is. Dan and I were talking, and I was asking him about what he did, and he told me he worked for this charity called the Blue Marine Foundation. Oh, cool. Explained to me what they did, and I had been living in a house on the coast for a number of years. In fact, we owned the seawall. We were that close. We had our own sort of beach in front of it. It's amazing.
Oh, cool.
We only sold it in December of last year. So I'd also been very aware of climate change, because I was living so close to the sea, literally, and over the 15 or 20 years that we'd lived there, it was very clear. You could see and feel the changes that were occurring through the sea. We were also, there was a beach, and we would regularly pick up the plastics from the beach, and the amount of plastic waste that was landing on the beach was just astonishing. And so I was sort of conscious of, like everybody, I mean, you know, I think you've got to have been living in a cave for the past 20 years not to realize that the climate is changing, that the global warming is a reality, and that if we're to have any chance of surviving as a race, we better do something pretty quickly. Yeah. You guys in California will know that better than most people, given some of the wildfires, etc., that you guys have been suffering during the last several years, and particularly this year. So climate change was in my psyche. I'd also learned how to scuba dive back in 2015-16.
Cool.
And I've been diving in the Maldives, and whole tranches of the coral reef were completely bleached out.
Oh man.
Just gone, dead. And when you dive and you see a coral reef that's in good health, which is just an abundance of color and of fish, it's just a micro world. And then when you see a completely dead, bleached coral reef, you realize, and that's caused through the warming oceans, which is caused through the warming earth. Then you realize that this is really happening. So when I met Dan, it was sort of a number of things came together, and we decided, again, something, my eldest daughter happens to be an opera singer.
Oh.
And she was about to, or 6 or 9 months hence, was about to take the lead in a brand new opera called Anthropocene. Anthropocene, the name is given to the age that man is responsible for, the first age that man has been totally responsible for the change in the world that we live in.
Okay.
And this opera was touching on climate change issues. And so when I talked to the composer of the opera about, we wanted to do something with him, and said, look, we'd like to create a watch called the C65 Anthropocene. And what we'd like to do is to donate an element of the proceeds from the watch to a charity that you would choose. And he bounced it back to me, and I said, well, look, how about the Blue Marine Foundation, whose whole efforts are about trying to reduce overfishing, because overfishing is one of the key reasons that the oceans are beginning to warm. The whole ecostructure of our oceans is changing because of largely huge overfishing, particularly by trawlers, particularly in the Southeast Asian oceans. Not entirely, but there's some real problems occurring in Southeast Asia. And so we did the C65 watch. We donated to the Blue Marine Foundation. The watch was a great success. We then started to work with the Blue Marine Foundation, found that we had so many sort of like-minded views, and wanted the relationship to continue and be ongoing. So last year we developed a watch, the C60 Blue, which was a Sapphire Dial Trident, C60 Trident Pro, which we produced a limited edition number of 500. It sold out in weeks. And we learned a couple of things. We learned that our customers really appreciated and bought into environmental issues. And the velocity of the sale of that watch was quite spectacular. It was a great looking watch, but there was something else going on as well. And we donated all of the profit of that watch to Blue Marine Foundation. And for a small independent brand like us to ultimately have given a donation of $350,000, which is what we donated, was I was very proud of that. And so were the team in the business. And so, as well as learning that our customers really bought into and wanted us to do more eco biased products, it was also really encouraging to find that the team at Christopher Ward themselves really bought into this whole project. And so we were looking again for an ongoing relationship. And as it happens, our major strap supplier is a Swiss supplier called Breloba. And the two senior guys at Breloba, Thomas Scorry, the CEO, and Mark Krebs, the CMO, they had set up hashtag Tide Ocean Material.
Okay.
Because they had been witness to what was happening in parts of Southeast Asia, where, again, as a result of two things really: huge overfishing by the trawlers, secondly, huge amounts of plastic being deposited into those oceans. Whole tribes of people who, particularly around the archipelagos of Thailand and the Philippines, who'd been for generation upon generation providing a living for themselves by fishing, were no longer able to do that because of the overfishing, the trawlers taking all the fish, and the plastics getting in the way. So Thomas and Mark had this, I think, brilliant idea of incentivizing those same fishermen, working with Thai and Philippine
Cool.
social enterprises, incentivizing, paying those fishermen to, instead of fishing out fish, to fish out plastic. So they paid them the same amount of money to, and they still do, to fish out plastic from the oceans that they pay them to fish out fish. So not only is it employing those people and giving their communities some prosperity again, and allowing them to continue, it's also doing this wonderful thing of taking plastics out of the ocean, which was killing the fish that were left anyway.
Yeah.
What happens is those fishermen, they fish the plastic out, they sort it, they shred it, and then it's sent to the University of Applied Sciences in Bern in Switzerland, who today are the only place where this ocean material can be upcycled into usable plastic. So some of it gets recycled into injection plastic. Some of it gets recycled into yarn, and some of it's recycled into, I forget what, but the yarn is then used to create, as well as bikinis, now straps. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so we decided to literally tie in with Tide, and we have produced, I think, the biggest range of upcycled ocean plastic straps that have been produced anywhere. And as part of what we're now doing and launching on the 27th of August, we're producing a watch called the C60 #Tide, which is again based on a trident. It's got a brilliant sort of organic pattern.
Yeah.
Sapphire Dial. Dial is in another development in terms of sapphire, which I'll talk to you about. It's I'm really pleased with what the guys have achieved with the new dial, because it's the first dial that we've done a printed SLN loom onto in an organic wave pattern, which is obviously very appropriate for the watch. But on the back, as well as the deep stamped hashtag that's the symbol of Tide, we've also got a piece of injected plastic, a ring of injected plastic that's ketoned in the Pantone of the watch. And we will, of course, have a range of Tide straps to go with the watch. But as of now, we've decided that all Tide straps, and this is a joint effort by us and Tide, for every Tide strap we sell henceforth, whether it be on a C60 Tide watch or just on any other watch, or as an individual strap, we will donate £5 jointly to the Blue Marine Foundation, because obviously this completes the circle of relationships. You've got the Blue Marine Foundation, who are largely driven towards trying to reduce overfishing. You've got Tide, that came into existence largely because of overfishing and the increasing amount of plastic, and you've got this truly upcycled product, some of which the revenues are now going back to the Blue Marine Foundation. So there's this lovely sort of circular pattern that's going on. But at the center of what we're about to do, I think we've got an absolutely brilliant looking watch, which I think, again, it's an open series. We didn't want to sell this out in weeks. We wanted it to go on for some time, and hopefully it's going to be a real winner, because if it wins for us, it wins for the Blue Marine Foundation as well.
It looks awesome, to be honest with you. And I have some facts about #Tide that I want to share, because I thought these were pretty interesting. You already hit on some, but let me tell you, this is straight from I guess the email that I got from Christopher Ward, and basically just 3 bullet points. The first one is hashtag Tide Ocean SA collects plastics waste from the ocean along coastlines and uncontrolled landfills, along with scientists at the Swiss University of Applied Sciences, has developed a method for repairing and upcycling the damaged plastic into high quality granules and yarns for new sustainable products. So obviously you covered that, and that's what you're using the yarn for your straps. Second is for the work that hashtag Tide has received. They actually, for the work they've done, they received the German Materialika Design and Technology Award in 2019, the Swiss Plastic Sustainability Award in 2020, and a Hong Kong International Business Award. So bravo to them. And lastly, hashtag Tide processed more than 15 million plastic bottles in its first operational year alone.
It's amazing.
Very remarkable. And so you said these straps will be sold individually as well on your website?
Yeah, they're already available. You can buy them on the site. We're producing one specifically for the Tide watch, but a number of other Tide straps are appropriate for it, as well as the Sealander collection and the rest of the Trident collection. When you think about them being upcycled ocean plastic, you get a sense that they're going to be, I don't know, a bit shiny, a little bit
rough.
No, they feel they have the texture of a canvas. I mean, it's quite remarkable what the cycling and the process has done. This is a proper knitted, tight canvas feel,
Nice. Okay.
and yet it's sun resistant, it's water resistant, because it's plastic based. So I think of them as the new NATO straps, honestly. And with our quick release system, of course, you can change in and out of Tide into bracelet, into leather, into anything else you wish. But I do think that these are the Tide straps are if you didn't know they were upcycled plastic, you'd still be interested in buying them because they're that good.
Okay.
And the fact that they are helping in a small way. I mean, none of us are kidding ourselves that we're saving the world. But we kind of, I think all of us, the guys at Tide, Mark and Thomas, the guys at Blue Marine Foundation, and the guys at CW, all we want to be able to do is do our small bit. Because that's all we can do, and this is one of those rare occasions that things came together, and it's one of these sort of genuine symbiotic relationships that seems to really be working. But I'm full of awe for what Thomas and Mark have done with Tide. I think it's quite remarkable.
Yeah, no, for sure.
With you witnessing firsthand what's going on with climate change, what do you say to people who don't believe it, that it's happening?
There's a lot of them.
It's a really good question, P. Ross. I suppose if it's quite difficult, isn't it? Because if people choose, I mean, how do you convince flat earthers that the Earth is round?
Right.
How do you convince creationists of Darwin?
Right.
I mean, if people choose to ignore the data and the science, there's nothing you can do that can convince them otherwise. All I would do is ask people to read and look through the scientific evidence, because if you are disposed, as I think probably the three of us are, and the majority of the world is, if you're disposed to believing in science, then as I say, you need to be living in a cave not to know that the Earth is warming up, and that the reasons for the Earth warming up are man-made, and that unless we restrict the temperature gain to 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2050, which is already looking pretty difficult, isn't it? Then we are in for, we're going to be in for a rough ride between now and 2050, even if we limit it to 1.5 degrees. That's a given. We're seeing the results of that. I think what's happened is we're at I think 1.1 degrees above the sort of 1990 levels now. they're forecasting it to, at the rate of increase at the moment, to go above 1.5 by 2050. But we can do something about it. We know that. There needs to be a huge political will. And I believe in pressure from below, rather than relying on the good and great of our leadership, which sometimes doesn't quite live up to what we'd like it to live up to. And so the pressure for change nearly always comes from below. And so it's the likes of you, me, and our friends who need to insist on change. You need to, even if we change some of the smallest things, and you can do really small things to make a difference. You can eat less red meat. You don't have to give up all meat. You don't have to become a vegan, but you can just eat less meat. You can do small things that can make a difference. You can buy a watch with a tied strap. It ain't going to change the world, but it's a small thing. And if all of these small things, when added together, are added when they are added together, they do add up to big change. But it won't be governments. I think. Whilst I hope that the political will be there ultimately, it won't happen unless we insist it happens. And it's consumers who will change. Capitalism isn't going to change its ways. Globalization isn't going to change in a nanosecond. But we as consumers, we have choice, and we can choose to do and buy certain things and not buy certain things. And our choices will ultimately be the reason for change. Today I can go and buy green electricity, as opposed to coal-fired electricity. I have a choice as a consumer. I can do that.
Right.
I choose to do it. It's a little bit more expensive, but so what? So all I would say to people is really, you need to understand what options you have, and as a consumer, what choices you have to make. And if we make most of the right choices between now and the next 10 or 15 years, then there is a reasonable chance the scientists tell us that we will keep global warming down to 1.5 degrees, which will give us all a chance for a fantastic future, which I'm optimistic about, because I do think the world is beginning to realize that doing nothing isn't an option. And we can all be cynics and we can all be deniers. But even if you are, and it's good to be skeptical, even if you are a little cynical, even if you are a bit skeptical, why would you take the risk? Why would you take the risk?
No, I agree. Especially if you have children or little cousins or whatever, like think about them. Don't be selfish, right? Because look how bad it is for us, right? And this is all because of the people that came before us, and we need to make a change. And I definitely commend you your company for what you guys are doing.
We're doing a very small amount. I mean, I don't want to put us up there as, some bastions of brilliance about this, but we're just trying to do our small bit, and it is a small bit, but at least we're doing something,
right?
Well, as long
as the guys in the business insist that we do. It's not about me, it's about our people want us to do this. And I think most people working in most organizations now want their own organizations to be responsible and to be held accountable for doing the right stuff. And if you're working in an organization that isn't, tell them.
Well, it's all those small contributions that makes it big.
I completely agree, B. Ross. Completely agree. It's just we as individuals can make a difference, not on our own, but when linked to everybody else, we make the difference.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And these are not. I know it's heavy stuff, isn't it? But it's, there is nothing more important in our world. It's more important than selling a few watches. It's more important than Everton winning the Premiership, which is not going to happen anyway. None of these things really matter compared to what we're confronted with, and we have a profound responsibility to look after the earth that we've inherited for the future generations that are coming behind us. So, as you quite rightly say, so all we can do is our small bit, and if we're not doing our small bit, someone needs to tell us.
Okay.
For sure.
So it's fair to say that Christopher Ward will continue to do something perpetually to keep just helping the environment just in different ways.
Yeah. I mean, we again, I think that there's a danger with all of these things that you can spread too wide. Our focus is primarily on the Blue Marine Foundation.
Okay.
We've got a really strong bond with them now, and so we will funnel our climate change efforts one way or the other through them, including our relationship with Tide, which, as I say, us and Tide are ultimately donating money from the sale of every watch to the Blue Marine Foundation. So we don't, this is, as provided they'll continue to have us as a partner, we will be Blues, they call themselves Blue, from Blue Marine Foundation. We'll be Blue's partner for as far into the future as I can see. And it means that we have a real focus. And I don't think people quite yet understand, not enough people, although it's beginning to change, quite understand the importance of the oceans in keeping our climate to 1.5%, 1.5 degrees warmer. The oceans have always been this huge carbon sink. And when most people talk and think about climate change, the images that come into play are, sort of burning gas on rigs, or big aeroplanes taking off from JFK. We think about those as the sort of the symbols of climate change. Actually, perhaps the biggest single issue in climate change is the warming of our oceans, and until we and only now we're beginning to understand the importance of that. And Charles Clover, who is the founder of the Blue Marine Foundation, he was a journalist for many years he was the environmental journalist for the Daily Telegraph, which is a paper in the UK, a broadsheet in the UK. And it was about 10 and a half years ago that he left to form BMF, Blue Marine Foundation, largely because he really understood that the oceans and overfishing of the oceans was reducing the ability of the oceans to retain carbon. And it's largely the trawlers. What's happening is that they're, as well as sucking up huge amounts of fish, they're also disturbing the beds of the oceans and destroying the forests that live under the oceans. There are huge forests, mangrove forests, sea kelp forests. These forests are being destroyed literally in the thousands and thousands and thousands of acres. And because they're not visible, we see what's happening to the Amazon rainforests, and we see from satellite pictures the change, and therefore we kind of respond to that. Because it's under the water, we don't know, and we don't see what's happening to our oceans. The destruction of the ocean beds is far worse than it is of rainforests. And yet the importance of the ocean bed as a carbon sink is far more important, twice as important as rainforests. Not generally understood, I think, by most people, because it's been hidden away because we don't see it. And what Blue Marine Foundation are doing is, with others, is bringing the world's attention to this fact. And it's I'm pleased to say that COP26, which is the big climate conference that's taking place in Glasgow in Scotland in November, that will be, I think, one of the first times that the oceans are right at the top of the agenda, and that's in no small part of the work that Blue Marine Foundation have done. So, and one thing I should push as well is that we produce a quarterly magazine at Chris Ward called Loop, which is a free magazine we send out to our database every quarter. Very nice. The next one goes out on the cover of the September one, which I've got here. Is this goes out this week? But what we've done this week with this issue, we handed over the editorship to the Blue Marine Foundation. Okay. So in here there are articles about carbon and the sea,
Awesome.
about fads, which is another major issue going on in the Indian Ocean. These are fishing aggregate devices known as fads, of
Okay.
which hundreds of thousands are just left floating around to land on islands in the Indian Ocean. And one island, for instance, is now completely under these fads. It's incredible. I hadn't heard about them until
Yeah.
the guys produced an article for us for the magazine. And so we're very proud to have given Blue Marine Foundation access to this. And in the introduction, what I say is, the reason that we did it is because the clock is ticking. No pun intended again. But with the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference scheduled for November in Glasgow, and with time running out for the world to avoid the worst consequences of global warming, we felt an urgent need to do our bit by bringing attention to what seems like a pivotal moment in our planet's future. So that's why we've devoted this issue of Luke to the Blue Marine Foundation and climate change.
Very nice.
Cool,
Very nice.
cool.
And I was looking at your website, and for anybody interested, you could go to the Christopher Ward website. You could see the straps that you're talking about right there. So it's like a canvas material, but it's not a NATO strap. It's like a two-piece strap, right? It kind of appears.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
It has quick release system on it. It starts off at 20 millimeters, and they offer it in 22 millimeters as well. You also offer a version with a real bronze buckle. And yeah, these things look really nice. They start off at 60 pounds and they go up to, I believe, 80 pounds. So
Correct.
if you want, anybody listening, anybody watching wants to be a part of this and you don't have money to buy a watch, maybe, pick up one of these straps. They actually look really nice. You were right, Mike. I mean, they look pretty supple. Yeah, they look cool. They look cool for $60.
They're cool straps. They really are.
Yeah, no, I think everybody
Yes,
needs
sir.
to do their part. And I know obviously we're here to talk about watches and that's fun and all, but obviously our environment and our future is a lot more important than anything else. So thank you so much from me personally for what you're doing. And I know you keep saying, yeah, they're really nice right there. I'll throw a picture in the video so people could see them.
Great.
But yeah, what you're doing, I know you said it's small, but in our opinion is huge because it's not just you as an individual, it's your entire company. So bravo to you. And I hope more watch companies jump on this, and not just as a one-off, but hopefully
Well,
they do get
and a
involved,
shout out. There are watch companies doing some really good stuff. I'm really impressed with the work that Oris have been doing for a while as well on this stuff. So it's not just Christopher Ward. And I do think in some ways there are some watch brands out there who are really, really sort of pushing the boat. There was a piece of research done last year by, I think, Morgan Stanley, the investment bank, and they do a regular sort of annual review of the watch industry. And they interviewed most of the CEOs of most of the Swiss watch brands, or a large number of Swiss watch brands. They'd be taking a long time to talk to all 400 or 500 of them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But 70% of those that they spoke with put sustainability as the number one or number two strategic imperative for their watch brands, which tells you something that the watch industry is generally speaking, I think, now becoming really conscious. And if they're not, they're going to lose their consumers. And it doesn't really matter why they're doing it, as long as they're doing it. Because again, the pressure from below, consumers now expect and will be demanding of the brands that they take this seriously, from the packaging through to the materials that you use. And one of the great trends of the next 10 years is going to be provenance. Where are you getting your stuff from? Who's supplying it to you? How do you know that the dyes that you're using for the dials that you're manufacturing, or the strap tanning that you're using? How do you know where the dye runoff is going into? Which rivers is it going into? Is it being processed before it's going into? All of these questions, consumers rightly are going to want the answers to. And I think it's historically, the watch industry has been historically very closed and very reluctant to speak out about some of these things, with good reason. Some of them, by the way, some of the practices are not acceptable in the 21st century. I think one of the next big changes that's going to occur is that honesty and openness will be forced on to the industry by the consumer, back to pressure from below. Yeah, it's because the consumer will demand to know more about what the practices are of the brands that they're buying from. If those brands do not agree to be transparent, those brands will lose custom. And that's the thing that will drive change. It's pressure from below. It's always the consumer. The consumer has power. We just don't really understand it sometimes as much as we should.
Yeah. And I think one of the easy, and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously I don't own or run a watch company, but one of the easiest ways maybe to change or a watch company could change is the packaging, right? Because that you leave a lot of carbon footprint. And Omega, I'm looking in your direction. Holy smokes. Those guys send like a whole crate just to get a watch, which is awesome. I mean, you're paying for this, and it's nice to get this nice, elaborate, cool looking package, but is that necessary? No, I rather that money go into the watch and the mechanics rather than the packaging. And also, I know Horace, I forgot who was doing something that was biodegradable. So if you threw it away, the packaging or with the outer packaging, it would just disintegrate into the earth. So I think that's probably where they can start. Most of them. I'm just making an assumption.
I couldn't agree more. And again, one or two are beginning to pick that up. We created a new form of biodegradable packaging ourselves,
Cool.
eco-friendly packaging. Introduced it, I think, in May 2019, when we relaunched Trident 3, or launched Trident 3, and it now we send every watch out in this packaging. It took quite a long time to create it, but it's a combination of biodegradable plastics and wood that's biodegradable as well. I'm trying to think of the word; it's gone. But we offered. It took a long time working with the packaging company to come up with it.
Yeah.
And we offered it to. We said we didn't want to own the rights to it, but we offered it up to the industry in an open letter to the industry, saying, look, we've created this really eco-friendly packaging. If anyone's interested, we'd be delighted to share what we've learned in the process, because it was quite an extensive process, and most of the praise really ought to go to our senior designer, Adrian Bookman, who spent months and months and months working on this.
Okay.
Nobody took us up on the offer. Still haven't.
Really?
Nobody's even asked about it.
Man.
Which is a shame, really, because it's we think it was the first truly eco-friendly luxury watch packaging anywhere. And again, for a small brand like us to be the leaders in that is ridiculous. I mean, there's no way we should be leading the way. But in the absence of anyone else doing it, we decided we would do it. And I don't think you've seen the packaging now. I think you'd agree it doesn't reduce the desirability of the product at all. The packaging is really rather good.
Right. Well, especially if you're buying it and as a consumer that you're helping the earth, I think it's a commendable thing, and you get a luxury watch out of it. That's cool. It's like, honestly, I'm looking around. I don't even know where the packaging for my stuff is. It's put away somewhere, and it's like it's no point to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we would, I don't know, you like me, I'm a big Apple fan. Yeah, a huge fan of Johnny Ive. Their packaging, I have to say, just fantastic. Yeah, I mean, just that, in the suction when
the suction, right?
That was just, and we set out to replicate that. Yeah, and I think we kind of did. But the thing about all of Apple's packaging, it's all terrible stuff. It's always, none of it is eco-friendly. Now, if there's one company in the world that ought to really go and do something,
It's probably them.
it's them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I'll say is I've got every single Apple box that I've ever been delivered. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they are just so, I just love
He just plays with
the
them.
design of the packaging is just so good. And Adrian worked tirelessly with the packaging company to achieve that with our own box, but with sustainable materials.
Very cool.
And that's what he and they achieved. And again, I think they should be very proud of that. And it's a proper luxury box. I mean, nobody would think that this is it's about 99.8 sustainable. The 0.2 that isn't is the glue. And we've yet to find a glue that we can use that holds things in shape and doesn't degrade very quickly. And we're working on that to try and get to 100% sustainable. At the moment, it's about 99.8% sustainable, but the glue is not. So that's the next piece of work. Also, I'm interested because how big we reduced the footprint of the package by 40% with the new packaging, which was also shipped around the world, and that is a carbon footprint in its own right. I'm interested to hear your point about wanting smaller packaging. I think the next step is can we create, and I think people like I think Breitling have done some really good work in this regard. Can we coach, train our consumers to accept their watches in almost watch-size packaging, which again would reduce the sort of the carbon footprint enormously. At the moment, the research we've done says some people want it smaller, but most people want to see this box. I'd love that to change, and maybe we need to challenge ourselves and produce something even smaller, and maybe give people the option going forward of having either. And I think that's what Breitling have done, and I think that's a really smart thing and a good thing that they've done, and we can learn from that.
Something that I've seen in the micro brand world that I really like is these companies are giving us these reusable kind of like travel pouches or travel rolls, if you will. Yeah. And even if it's for like a single watch and then enough space for like a strap and maybe a tool. And then that way, when you ship it, the watch maybe ships and they're very small, right? Because that way you don't have to have the entire watch just kind of laying.
I think that's a really interesting idea. And I think that's the next challenge we've got. So we're not there yet. Yeah.
I was going to say you can knit that canvas with this Tide material, and then the outer box could be just, disposable, but it could be,
I'm just going to write that down because that's a really good idea.
I think in my opinion, that's what I would like to see. I don't really care about the outer packaging, but I do care about the presentation of the actual watch. You open it, you have a reusable thing that you could proudly say, hey, my Christopher wore watch is in here. So just my 2 cents.
No, thank you. I've written it down literally.
Nice. All right, Mike. Well, anything else? We've reached our hour mark. We don't want to take up too much of your time. This has been fantastic as always. Anything else you want to share where people can find Christopher Ward?
No, I mean, ChristopherWard.com. Go there. If you don't buy anything, you can always order Loop magazine, and which is complimentary, and you'll get to know everything that's going on in the world of Christopher Ward and some things that aren't. And it's an eclectic magazine. I think it's some people think it's good enough to be on the newsstands. If you're interested in watches, not just Christopher Ward, I would encourage people, even if they don't buy a watch, go and get a free magazine from us.
I have the tab open, and as soon as we get off this call, I am ordering one. I didn't even know that was a thing, but I love what you guys are doing. I love your mission. but love your watches too. Obviously, all the technology and everything.
That's the main thing.
I know. I'm not just saying that because we have you on, because we are very selective as to who we bring on, who we don't. So obviously, having you a second time is because we really connect with you and with your company and with your mission. Obviously, So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I mean, thank you, but it is genuinely a real pleasure to talk to you guys as well, because I know that you're doing this for all the right reasons as well. There's many people in the world of watchers and watch journalism who are not doing it necessarily for all the right reasons. You guys are, and so I'll always be available to come on and talk.
Thank you.
Whatever you want to talk about, it's a pleasure. It really is.
Cool.
Well, thank you, P. Ross. Where can people find you?
Ross Wristwatch Love everywhere: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Okay, so it was SoCal Watch Reviews for me. YouTube channel is growing, and our social media is growing on Instagram as well. And it's awesome because the bigger we get, the more people we could reach, especially with messages like this. We talked about watches, but that wasn't really what this conversation was about. It's about the earth and saving where we live and for our future. So, Mike, thank you again for coming on. You're welcome anytime. And your team is awesome, by the way. So just kudos to everybody over there, Christopher Ward. But well, thank you everybody for listening and watching. And as always, stay humble.